So welcome to episode 7? 7.
Question mark?
Yeah. Of the Life with Pigs podcast.
Counting.
I know. Hopefully some people out there have watched them all and watched the last one where we started the adventure of trying to rescue, rehabilitate the cow Sophie. So if you haven't watched that one yet, go back and watch part 6 because listen.
Some people are just
This will be the continuation of that where we maybe conclude it. I don't know. We're talking this might end up being 3. We'll see.
We just really like to just go with the flow. It's like we do no planning, almost no planning before we do this podcast. So, I mean, really well researched and
we're
just telling a story. Yeah, I mean,
lived.
For this one, we're just talking.
This is a lived experience podcast. So, so where we left off last time, we went through the phone call.
I did a fantastic reenactment, I think, on my end of the bad guy.
There's been some calls about, hiring you as a voice actress. So, okay. But yeah, so we went through
redneck did, is what you're
the angry redneck. I don't know.
It's not bad. Sorry.
Maybe you just meant he got sunburned on his neck. I don't know.
Needs sunscreen. Got it. Okay.
But the angry farmer threatening to put an end to me, pour blood of my
and the animals,
and pour blood of my animals on the porch. And then we talked a little bit about that, and that's where we left off. So I was trying to decide, am I going to does it do anything when it says that?
I don't think so, but
okay. It's just the University of Pennsylvania wanting my money. So we left off there, ready to talk about what happened when I decided, all right, I'm just going to put myself in harm's way a little bit. I'm going to build fences all around my yard so that you can't see in and try to take on this farmer to get this cow back. So that's where we left off.
Yeah, and one of the things on that came up after this part 1 that we did is people were asking, well, didn't the police do anything? And which is a great question. It's one that, you thought, hey, these are the people I should give the information to, the evidence that I had that this cow was poorly treated and, not being given the care that she should have been. And this person was, where these people were essentially starving her, leaving her for dead. And so, yes, you gave all that information to the police. And no, the police did not do anything. In fact, they never even called you back, I don't think, did they?
No, yeah. So I got in touch with the detective in charge. He had given me his card, which had his phone number and his email. And
what was his name? We can say his name. I used to know it. I can't.
I know. I knew it so well for a while.
Because we used to play F, Marry, Kill with some of the characters. I'll do this. I remember he was one of them. Sorry, you probably cut that part out, but. I just have a dark humor of dealing with this kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's how we cope with. If you see us laughing or hear us laughing about some of the stuff, it's definitely not funny.
We never effed them. We never married any of them, and we never killed them. Although we did joke a lot about you marrying one of them, and this
that's what I'm talking about.
This really being a secret plot where you were in against me. I just want people
to not be confused about it. That we don't find any of this funny, but it's sort of when you're in the middle of a tornado and you're what the heck is happening around me, the only way you can really deal with it is to sort of humor and kind of late night talk show hosts. They're talking about really serious things in the world and they make it humorous because that's how you can almost digest what's happening. So just a little caveat there.
Yeah, the squeaking in the background is just our pig pumpkin squeaking her tusk together. So if you hear it, that's what that is.
She looks adorable too.
Yeah, she is. So, yeah.
You gave your evidence to the police.
So I gave my evidence. I sent all my pictures. I sent the connection to the directory on OneDrive where they were uploaded from my phone as they happened so that the EXIF data would show they've never been edited. They are 100% the in-the-moment photos. and heard nothing.
As well as the photo that was originally taken, I believe, of her, right? When she was at the farm.
No, because I didn't have that yet.
Okay.
I did not know about that yet.
Well,
Yeah.
that came
So
what did the detective say? I think you had one conversation with him, right?
Where he
said that he, as I remember, sorry.
Go yeah.
I have like a really good like memory for like all of these details because I was very invested in this, even though I wasn't even here yet.
It's true.
But remember that you sent in these pictures and they had, you know, the data attached to them that you could see where pictures were taken, all that stuff. And he said, we have no way of knowing whether these are just internet photos or were photoshopped. So this is the Baltimore County Police, which is deeply concerning given that I think computer crimes, you know, are very much involved in part of our life.
Yeah.
And the police are saying that they could not figure out how to tell if a photo is real or not, or if it's been taken by you.
Yeah, this is 6 years ago, so they knew. They knew they could. Right. So, you know, and I also sent him the audio from the farmer threatening to kill me and all that stuff. And I had sat down and traumatized myself by listening to it over and over again to write out every word that was said, so if they wanted to know what was said when, they could have it there. So they had everything they needed to see that something was not right. And I heard nothing.
Yeah.
And so, like, I sort of reached out to, like, the social media platform at the time that we focused on was Facebook, and put out there what was happening. So this is the point at which Mallory sort of would have seen it first, following our page, and immediately the reaction was huge. Like, people were very shocked that this was happening. You know, I wrote a pretty long post, and that post went like very viral. Like, a lot of people saw this post and reacted with sort of horror. And it was sort of like the start of my appeal to people saying, help me get this cow back. You know, we really want to, you know, achieve this. Something's not right here. And the pictures of Sophie and the condition she was in. And so, yeah, people were just shocked that the police would think that this was a well-loved or cared for cow.
Well, that's a good segue, I think, into another topic that we should talk about with this, which is, I mean, the timeline's a little bit fuzzy, but you made a big deal out of it, you know, as much as you could, right? Like, online. And so they ended up doing what do you call that when my brain is failing me right now, but the press conference of not like a press conference, but the police talked about it. It was on the news, right? So I mean, it got on the news in a couple of different places. Like first, there was a news one that was done here in Virginia that was very favorable.
Yeah, like situation. They came out, they like said, you know, what really happened. You know, what were the facts of the case. And it was great. You know, the news reporter that came was like clearly shocked that this had occurred. And when I reached out to the local police, they were really nice about it in terms of like, you know, we were just there with them and, you know, like, but if there's anything we can do to help, if there's something, you know, that you're worried about in terms of them, let us know. You know, like I remember reaching out to our neighbors because when the police were here with the sniper at the end of the road, one of our neighbors, like a strong libertarian at the time, drove down and was...
I'm gonna guess he still is. Like,
oh yeah, he still is. But at the time, that's how I knew him, as like very strong libertarian, came screaming at the police, you know, like, what in the hell are you doing? Like, why are you doing this to these people? These are good people. And
had no idea what was going on. It's just like
not like animal rights people, not like vegans, not anything like that, but just like, what is going on here? And thought it was, you know, crazy. But every neighbor on our street that I like talked to about it, and none of them are like pro animal rights like crowd, just to put it lightly.
It's not a vegan street.
Yeah, it's like a very hunter, like grew up here, kind of like, you know, they grew up on the street, and all of them were like, this farmer doesn't want to show up here because he won't make it out of here alive if he messes with you response to me. So it was
Nice.
a nice response to have from your neighbors. I'm not saying that I condone, that.
I mean, self-defense, right? Because you are not
Yeah.
someone who's like
Yeah.
got guns at the time, right? You did actually go out and buy a gun because of the
Yeah.
situation, though, because he had threatened. He, taught you the name of a bullet for a sniper rifle, which we didn't know. We got to learn from him, so thank you for sharing.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I did wanted to say real quick. The reason I brought up the initial news story was that there was at least another one done in Baltimore. So sort of the counter story where they interviewed the Baltimore County Police, and they gave the reasons why they felt that Sophie had not been abused, that she was not treated poorly, and they basically just reiterated what the farmer had told them. And so I'm going to say some of them, and we can maybe just kind of go through them, line by line, because they're very interesting.
Yeah.
So the first one, which is my personal favorite, is cattle shrink. And the Baltimore County Police officer...
Okay, let's just say this is going to be a 3-part thing,
Yeah,
because we
actually,
may not get very
They
far.
actually stood and went on television in front of a reporter. They said this with a completely straight face, that the reason that she was so thin is because of a phenomenon called cattle shrink. And they said this is what happens when you transport a cow. Cattle shrink happens, and so that causes them to lose weight. So maybe, to the layperson, you hear that and you're like, oh, this is a thing that happens. So let's talk about what cattle shrink is. Well, first of all, the word shrink is not referring to a cow actually shrinking. If you think of shrinkage, if you think of like a store, if you have items that are broken or stolen or lost, it's called the shrink. And so it's a terminology used for products, basically. And so what happens is when they take cows that are on their way to slaughter, they are sold by the weight. So when they arrive where they're going, they're weighed. And that's how they're essentially paid for them. Cows poop and pee a lot. And on the way to slaughter, they're all kind of crammed into these big tracks, so they're not given food or water. And so what happens is they are losing water weight and poop weight. And whatever you weigh them at the start, they're going to weigh less because they're on the road for potentially up to a couple of days. Again, no food, no water. They, as anyone does, release all of that out. So they're very thirsty. They're very hungry when they get there. They weigh less because of that, water weight, very normal. So that's called cattle shrink. And it refers to the shrink of the profits that the person is going to make because of the loss of that poop and pee weight. What this farmer had told the police was that cows just shrink when you put them in the car. So Sophie was in the car for 3 hours, and basically you put a cow in a vehicle for 3 hours, they're just going to shrink 200 pounds, right? Yeah. And so a police officer heard this information, didn't question it at all, or didn't care, or knew it was, made up.
And no matter how many times we questioned it to them and said, this makes no sense, nothing. Like, they bought into this cattle shrink, which...
But maybe we're wrong. Maybe cows just shrink when you put them in the car. We're going to put Jenna in the car and see what happens. Because I'd like a smaller Jenna.
In Sophie's case, at minimum, she was like 150 pounds underweight. Now, percentage-wise, for an actual cow, it was like some super low. It was like 0.2% of their weight. Or some fractional thing.
When you have tons of cows and you're sending them all to slaughter, that's a price, value to that. So that's why it's a thing.
And so for Sophie to lose that much weight, she would have had to have lost essentially like 75% of her body weight to get to the weight that she was. And so, like, when we questioned sort of them in post, I think their response always was that the person who had taken her stuffed Sophie in their trunk, and they don't know how long she held her. And I'm like, well, I have pictures from the day she arrived with the date on it, and it wasn't, like, I am pretty certain it was 3 hours, and they did not, because I took her out of the back seat of a car. So it was not...
As one traveled, I have traveled in the backseat of a car, and I've traveled to Maryland and back as a result of this, and I have remained relatively the same size.
And you pee a lot.
I pee a lot too, and
I do not shrink when I travel.
I have not weighed myself like at the beginning and end, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna say like I did not look significantly different. But
we need to go for a drive to lose our COVID weight because maybe we can.
Will you put me in the trunk?
I mean, if you.
I mean, let's stuff me in a trunk for and let's try it. Like,
let's just see how it goes. But anyway, being serious about sort of.
So that was number one. Oh, sorry, were you gonna?
No, yeah.
So number one was cattle shrink, which I think we can safely say, just describing it like that's not the thing. And then kind of when questioned, he had a few different things. So like if you questioned him on one, and this was all via social media, because he obviously got pretty upset that people were reacting this way and hearing all this stuff about him. And so made some social media posts, himself, him and other people that were there at the farm. And so if you question him about it, he wouldn't really directly answer that. He would just move on to sort of the next reason as like an evasive tactic. So the next one was, again, we mentioned this last time he said on the phone, these were his daughter or granddaughter. It was never
he said both
clear. And then I think it was actually his stepdaughter. It was never clear who these children were in relation to him. But the next one was they were 4-H. This was a 4-H cow. Yeah. And these girls that were related to him in some capacity were caring for this cow. And we talked about this in the first podcast. We don't need to go into that. But like, if you have kids who are taking care of an animal and that animal is like starving to death, either you step in and put a stop to that, or it's not really a beloved family pet. So we're going to rule that one out. The third one was that she had some health conditions, and a vet was out and had looked at it and was treating her, and they were aware of it and they were on top of it. So the problem is those things don't all go together, right? So, and the other one was she was rejected by her mom. That kind of goes along with her being a 4-H, being cared for by the little girls. Her mom rejected her, and so she was small and she was a runt and all of that. Yeah. So the third one being, she was being treated. Well, then why would you say this cattle shrink thing? If she's got a known medical condition that's causing
her to be small,
you would just be like, hey, here it is. But you're contradicting yourself. One, you're saying she's not small. It just happened. She was fine when she was here. Yeah. And then the person who took her in the car is the reason why. And then when she got there, the final reason was that you photoshopped it. So, but again, those things couldn't possibly be true when you're also saying this cattle shrink thing, because if she was fine before she left, then there wouldn't be a reason to have a vet coming out treating this condition that you're aware of. Like, what is it? Either she had a condition or she didn't. Either she was fine when she was there or she wasn't. But he just rotated through all of these things. And so the same detectives that are interrogating people, solving crimes, detecting things, investigating things, were not able to even put together that this man's own explanations cannot even all be true. Yeah. And he's saying them all. So there's no way they believed him. Either they're the most dangerous police department in the world.
Well, I think that is very true. They did not believe him. We know that.
Right. We know that now. I think at first everyone was like, we just need to explain this.
Yeah, no, I mean, my whole strategy at the beginning was any sane person will see the evidence, hear the evidence, and support us.
Right.
They did not.
They did not. And so without getting into the particulars, because for legal reasons, we can't give particulars, which we will explain why those legal reasons are there soon. We found that there is documented evidence that they not only were friends, but that there had been some inappropriate behavior at some point on part of the police had actually gotten in trouble for some things that everyone was all kind of doing together. So there was some shady business going on. When
he said that they were his dear friends.
They were his dear friends.
They were his dear friends.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if they like him anymore, because now when he said that, we really tried to put that out there to be like, hey, police, is this true? And of course they were like, no, So I don't know how dear friends they are anymore, but.
Yeah. So was that all the reasons that they gave?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, I think when we brought up all the wounds on her body, because she missing hair everywhere, rub wounds, and her hoofs being rotten, they would try to blame it on the car ride up. they would say, we don't know how long they had her or how much they tortured her so that you could make money off sharing her story.
That's right, because you photoshopped her or tortured her because you wanted to make money in your nonprofit that was like
we photoshopped it to make them look bad, but we also did the real thing to her,
right?
Because we wanted to make money off it. And so, you know, I have the
How much money did you make? Are we just like living in the lap of luxury here?
Yeah. Well, we are. What is it? A racketeering operation.
Also a racketeering operation. Yeah.
And we are also, what's the word?
A cult.
A cult, but a COLT. So
a baby horse. I like baby horses.
Yeah, we're baby horses. Anyway, so. Yeah, at this point, this is the humor part. So I can say this is not funny, but it's the only way we can deal with the situation because it's just so ridiculous. And we've not even gotten to the car chase yet, So at that point, I'm like, holy crap. Like, it's not looking good for these police to listen to reason. We still tried to reason with them, but they did a news report where they walked around the farm with the police. The police
11 days later, I think it was.
Yeah, 11 days later.
After you report animal abuse, and the person knows they're being reported for animal abuse, you give them 11 days before you go there.
And they show a cow in like some area, because we went to this farm where the cows are like
later on we went.
There was like poop up to their knees on all of them, at least when we saw them.
It was really bad.
But yeah, it was not like this great, you know, like fluffy field of grass that they show like one cow in that they're like feeding a bottle to, and like, see, our animals love us. And it's like a starving animal that you give a bottle to is gonna come to you, like, you know.
Yeah, she doesn't know like what's supposed to be happening.
Like, if you're the only person that will give them food, then like,
but even so, she doesn't realize that like they're the ones that are supposed to be taking care of her, and also that they're the ones that are going to kill her in here. Let's not forget, like, the intention is at the end of that they are going to kill her. Like, she is going to be slaughtered. He said on the phone to you, I kill cows every day.
I love taking their life, basically.
It's like, that's what's going to happen to her. So as much as whatever. Anyway,
it's bizarre. But the police in this video say, you know, there are photoshopped videos of, you know, the situation.
I forgot they said that.
Yeah, photoshopped videos. I sent them the originals, like,
there's no need to Photoshop anything. Like
we hired a lawyer later on who literally went and was able to verify all of it, and like just had someone that did that sort of thing in 2 seconds. Like, no problem.
Apparently the police don't have.
But the police, they have no connections with anyone that can do that. So it was just this like overwhelmed feeling of like, what can we do? And so I believe like that is the point where you enter the picture.
Like a wrecking ball.
As it comes out.
Like I just came in.
Yeah, I reach out and I say, I need help, you know, like with just figuring out who we can contact. You know, I'm trying to call everywhere. If you could call.
Yes, you will. Yeah. So I remember this very well.
Go
so
for
yes,
it.
you did. No. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I'd rather you tell it.
You were, you know, kind of saying, letting people know, you know, and a lot of people were like in the comments like, oh, you should call this place, you should call animal control, you should call this newspaper. And so
did I have them calling the farm at first too?
I think people looked it up. Like they did. So who knows? So, but it was very like disorganized, where people really wanted to be helpful, but it was like, I knew in looking at this, like, okay, like no one's gonna pay attention unless we're getting, you know, the same place is getting all these same reports. So if everyone's kind of like doesn't know what to do, you know, and so comments get missed, comments get buried, and there's another post. So I just started keeping track and then adding on to it myself of like a list of like, here's all the places, so that people can have like a coordinated effort to do this. And so I did this, and then I, you know, wrote to Ryan and was like, hey, here's the list I compiled, like super helpful. And he thought I was crazy. So anyway, it's obviously he realizes the error of his thinking.
I do.
Now,
I mean, she sent me, it was like an Excel file, right?
I like spreadsheets.
Like an organized list of where to contact, like the phone numbers and stuff.
I use Excel all the time. Like,
Understood.
It was just like a list.
And it was a list. It was amazing. And my first thought was like, this is so helpful. And then my second thought is, like, is this person gonna, like, show up at my house and,
Yes.
wear my skin in a year? Like, I did not know that I would marry that person. She knew she was gonna marry me, but...
At this point, I did not know that. At this point, I was very invested in, one, I, am, like, an animal rights person. 2, I'm an animal lover. 3, I was like, how dare this happen to this sanctuary that I follow, that I feel very invested in, like, this is terrible. And I really was just thinking, like, oh my gosh, if that were me, like, meaning you, like, if that were me, and I had this cow that I loved, that I knew was abused, and the police came and took her back to the place that not only abused her, but is going to kill her, like, I would be devastated. So I was like, I need to help. And I have ADHD, I have hyperfocus, if you're familiar with that nice benefit of ADHD. And so I was like laser focused, and I'm like, I'm gonna help save this cow. So
reason 4.
What?
Hot guy with a cow that you wanted to, like, maybe, just have a reason to contact.
That was not at all playing into my face. That was not at all a part of it. Yes, I thought he was very attractive. Yes, I was like, it would be great if someday I could find a man like that. But there was no part of me that felt like I was trying to, like, get... I like it.
Okay, so we've got 4 minutes left here to hit our half-hour mark before we cut ourselves off. We've made no real progress, but it's been very interesting.
Some progress.
A little bit, yeah.
So I'll just summarize what I did. I basically got a bunch of people to harass everybody. Let's not use the word harass. We're gonna take that back. To contact and make sure to keep this issue at the forefront, which was like the governor's office, which was animal control, like all these different places. Anyone who maybe could help. I think the prosecutor's office, like, just
and if you were in the Friends of Sophie network, like,
thank you
so much, like, so.
We're a very dedicated group.
Yeah. You had, like, most of the people that followed our page and maybe more, like, working on this.
I was very invested.
Like, very organizedly. Like, if you want to go go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, so it was interesting, though, that, like, one, nobody paid any attention whatsoever. Like, I don't know. I feel like with all the people we had, all the activity we had, like, it is, like, shocking that essentially nothing happened out of it. Like, no one contacted us back, like, nothing, which makes me think even more that
I was going to say,
people were just...
something was achieved, and it is to see that nobody really cared. I mean, I think there were, like, little things where, like, people were like, oh, I didn't know that, and then had different feelings about, like, working with them and stuff,
That is true. So
you
what was
don't have to
interesting...
get into specifics because I don't know how...
Right. Well, so we did read the phone call. So basically, almost nobody cared that this was happening to a cow. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, no one really cares about cows. 2, there was almost no legal protections for farm animals because legally you can just kill them and eat them. So it's really hard to say, well, you can do this. There are laws in place around how you can kill them, like at slaughterhouses and things like that. But as far as, like, you just have animals, like, on your property, like, horses, different animals that you're going to kill and eat, like, there's not, necessarily those same type of protections. Not that something couldn't be done, but it's just really not something that people ever do or care about. People also, like, it's cow, like, so there was really no movement. Then there was also, this farmer had, connections in the way of law enforcement, in the way of, people, and so...
well, and it's hard because the police reiterated to us over and over again, if you had just contacted us about this cow, we would have done something. But the reality is, the only thing they can do is go out there and say, is there a cow that's suffering here? And the farmer can get out of it by saying, you're right, they are suffering. And the last thing someone that cares about animals really wants to do is to have that animal killed as a result of them. You want to help the animal. Right, they'll just be euthanized. So it's such if they're, like, in such a bad way that their life is obviously not going to be saved, then yes, that would be the best thing. But for the most part, people want the animal, so nothing's going to happen out of it. I should add, that's in Baltimore County. In Williamsburg, like, we've worked with animal control, and they've literally said to us, we want to be able to spot, a suffering animal,
Right.
so that we can prosecute these sorts of things regardless of what species they are. And so I think that there are good places that do care,
Yes.
where regardless
Baltimore
of
County,
not in Baltimore County.
No.
Like, so I think this is a good stopping point to like sort of jump in next time.
Is it?
And I mean, this may be 4 or 5 parts. I don't know, but that's okay. Like it's a story that
reliving it is just so stressful.
It is.
Well, one thing I was gonna say though,
Okay.
the reason I was saying that no one really responded. However, when we eventually were at court for a related issue, the judge was like, "Hey, I've heard about this."
Yeah.
I was like, "You're welcome." So
Yeah.
I the one thing I did succeed in was making most of Maryland hate you for anyone that's
well,
in
don't
some
forget,
sort of
you
office.
did get response from 4-H, right?
That's true. Surprisingly,
Yeah.
they did say that they were not going to. I don't know how long that lasted though. They did say that they were not going to
allow sponsorship.
of this farm. So surprisingly, I mean, there were a few things, but I don't know that we can really. There were smaller places, and that was the other thing I was going to say too. Sorry, this is like the ADHD. People were like, "It's a cow." The one thing that people did seem to care about was the very racist statements that this person had made. If you remember, he said some very homophobic and racist things. That N-word was said. There were some very bad things. So people were much more interested, I think, in that side of it.
Yeah. I was going to say, but the 4-H also confirmed that there was nothing related to that cow entered into the 4-H system.
I mean, granted, there are other... But the county that they were in, the 4-H program that was in that county, they claimed
had no record of it.
So, in theory, they could have been raising or intending to do something, but at that point, nothing had happened. So, at that point, there was no connection.
I like how we pretend like maybe their lie was, not as
I just always like to be factual, unlike people like that who do not be. I like our end to always be very factual. So, there was no... at that point, nothing. And so, at least there were local people who did care, or at least didn't want to be associated with this sort of situation. And so we got the word out. And so at that point we decided we were going to do the protest, which is when things started to get, if you didn't think they were interesting already, things get very, very interesting. So we will pick up next time at one of the times where I feared for my life in this whole scenario.
All right.
So
one of the times. All right, thanks for joining, and we'll be back with episode 8. And
maybe slightly more organized.
3rd part. Yeah, maybe we'll. But I don't know. Like it's
probably
just
not.
There's just so much to tell. I mean, we didn't. It's not like we missed anything. That's for sure. So, all right, maybe. All right, we will see you next week.